Okay, and you're ready?
We're ready.
So we're back from recess to continue the issue of whatever we want to call this thing, the county pay matrix, the various matrix, etc. I had a couple questions after I had a chance to do some reading. This one that you guys have proposed has an extra column over the old one.
Because there's an intermediate page to the old one. So that would be like your starting wage type, right? So that's what your first column, your 0 to 3 months, is that intermediate. You know, if you make it past 3 months, then you get to go to your grade level.
Oh. Okay, so this is what equates to the other column,
Right.
the intermediate.
So that would be your starting wage. If you make it past your first 3 months, then you go to your grade level, which, I mean, that would be up to whoever hires to say where they're starting, you know, their people at and what
So
grade
when
they were.
just to make sure I'm reading it right, when this says 1 to 3, that's years.
Yep.
But on the back, when it says 1 to 3, it's months.
Well, right. I'm not sure if that refers to months, honestly. I don't know that anybody was actually using the intermediate one. I didn't find any numbers
No intermediates
that
on
they
the
were
payroll
using. So
scale.
that's when I said, well, it's got to be there somewhere, right? So I assumed that's got to be the starting wage.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, I'm not sure if I wrote this down correctly, but before we took the break, you said that going with this equates to about $148,000 more a year, and
Which we accounted for in the budget.
which we've accounted for in the budget.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever run back to this idea of going up a step or whatever?
No, because we were always under the impression that we were doing
We wanted
the
to stay at the
match to
stay at
get
the
everybody.
same levy rate as the, and I couldn't squeeze it without raising that levy rate. That was more or less my instructions, to keep it at the same levy rate that we did to the taxpayers. So
Right.
I just couldn't bump it anymore. I would have loved to.
But 1% makes $148,000 difference.
Well, it's a little more because you still had a lot of people that previously did not get what they should have gotten prior.
So 1% is the lowest increase.
Right.
Right.
There are others getting.
To be in the same grade and the same thing, which is why we said step and grade match.
Because you had a lot of
Because there was such a
officials didn't
different.
giving the people the rate, the
Longevity.
And I mean,
longevities and that type of stuff towards this
If the elected feel
old
like
system.
their people shouldn't be at the grade where it lands on there, then they should say, okay, I don't want them at a 6, I want them at a 4.
That's totally up to that elected official. We just tried to stick them all in
Where they
and
were at.
and
Yeah.
did a projection that that's where it is in the budget. Now, if they choose not to increase their employee because of their something going on, you know, in their day-to-day operation, that they're not meeting that requirement from that elected official, that's totally up to the elected official. That's not up to us. We just did try to combine and keep it all within what it should be relative to the other pay grades, the other systems. And then we still are not quite there.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I would, this is a interim step and grade system match. It's not it basically, I understand what they did. We couldn't do a full grade upgrade, full grade step up. because we couldn't afford it.
And you're still
So
not
what-
accomplishing anything.
and not
You're still not evening anything
And-
up anywhere.
And what the whole purpose was to try to catch up the clerk side and everybody else with the roads department and sheriff's department that are clerks, and to make it more even, which we needed to. And, you know, I would think that being that this is an interim match, step and grade match system, that, you know, we look at approving it upon getting a wage study, you know, because this is going to change. You know, we're getting a wage study this year, and I think during the interim, this would put everybody on the same, you know, basically we didn't change anything, just the amounts changed. We weren't able to bump anybody up a grade. We had to bump them up through the amount, and they stayed at the same grade. And we played catch up.
I just have a lot of questions. To me, everybody didn't get the same increase. Some people are getting 1%, some people are getting more.
Mhm.
Who made the decision on who got more?
Like I said, I just put them into that's, you know, once those numbers popped in from the starting wage, and then did the increases with the same percentage as that step and grade, and then I just put them into where they were on their matrix into the new one, and that's
So you moved them all up a percentage, right?
right. So this went up a little bit so that people that were already in that system were still catching up with the bigger raises from other departments. And then I took them from where they were at on their matrix and put them into this one.
But-
So some of them would be higher raises because, you know, some of the matrices were a lot more conservative than others, kind of for the same kind of stuff. They were all similar, but they all just had so many different numbers. So I just took them from where they were their grade, just like, you know, I showed Ben. I did knock off the top grades, but, you know, this on that is an 11, but they stayed in 11. So that's how they all kind of just landed in there. So, like I said, the elected would be totally fine to go back and say, hey, I have this person at this amount for this reason, so they could be, you know, moved to a different grade. They're just in that grade off of where they were to begin with in their own matrix. But if they were that much lower for a reason, like Peggy said, then the elected would have to come and say, hey, you know, I don't want this person to be a 6, I want him to be a 4, and this is why. So then it would be up to them to decide actually where you know, I just put them where they were at to begin with in their own matrix.
From the payroll system.
But if that is too much higher or whatever, then there's other grades they could go down to. So this essentially just raised up the original matrix to match up to some of those higher wages in other departments, and then the other matrix got put in there. So like you say, they could still go and say, you know, no, it shouldn't be that grade. It should
So
be
could
this
you give an
grade.
example of where, of, you don't have to say by name, but where one was completely different than,
So I really couldn't say an example, but I mean, they all had a little bit of a variance to what their amounts for their step and grade were going across.
On one of Jerry's systems, he didn't have
His grades didn't go as low as far as this one. So
as high.
right, it didn't go as, you know, there wasn't as many grades. So to say that, you know, we're going to give a grade to everybody, then his people wouldn't get anything that are on that one because there's no higher grade in his matrix.
So what was wrong with the logic of just giving all the affected departments a 1% raise? Why some are 1 and some are, I mean, I think I understand your explanation of why, but
Bridging the gap is what we talked about during the whole help match everybody up, to some of these departments that got the bigger raises over the years. That was what was discussed, and that's kind of what we were trying to accomplish for you guys when
right, but
this discussion came up.
We've taken out the sheriff, the road, and solid waste who got the bigger raises.
Mm-hmm.
So why not treat everybody else the same? Why are some getting 1% and some getting more? That's where I'm just not understanding it.
Again, that was because some of the wages are so much higher than other wages.
Even amongst
So.
just these departments.
Right.
Amongst the, yes, that's what we were
just
saying.
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Through the
Because
whole
everyone split. And I don't know why or how that even came about.
Which comes back to why I feel like this is a new matrix. If we had just taken this and given everybody 1%, or in my mind, if we'd have given everybody the step or the grade, whatever you call it,
But we couldn't afford this.
we couldn't afford that. But if we'd have just said, oh, we could afford 1%, why didn't we just give everybody over here 1%?
Because you're still in a deficit with matching to the other departments.
Which means this really is a new step in grade, because it's not.
We didn't change classification of people. We just brought up the amounts of money.
I don't doubt you. I'm just struggling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Why wouldn't a 1% increase have done it?
Because Jerry had a system, the treasurer had a system, then you had the old system, then you had clerk's system.
Right, which essentially worked the same way other than some stop sooner, different amounts on, it was still the same. You got grades and
then
longevity
they had years on there, but it had no, some of them just stopped and wouldn't even had another bump.
I'm still searching. Are you?
Yeah, I am, but on one hand, we're fixing a problem, and on the other hand, this is an interim. This is an interim pay grade scale, and we're going to be looking to get a wage study to actually do the right one. I know we had people with longevity issues that we didn't do. And I know we had mismatched pay. And that spells legal trouble if we don't treat everybody the same that does everything the same. So, that's where I'm at on this.
Would you object to me going around for public comment before we vote?
No.
Just so I might get some new ideas. Okay, public comment or question?
I think I understand what you're talking about, Biggie. If you got a clerk in your office that does the same thing as a clerk in Jerry's office, you're just bringing your clerk up to what Jerry's paying his clerk.
Pretty much.
And,
They're all right within the years of service of the county.
and if you do step in grade, somebody that's already making more than your clerk is getting a bonus because they're getting moved up. Is that right?
Not moved up
No.
in the step or a grade.
But if that's what they were talking about, moving everybody up a step. in grade.
Well, they were.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the commissioners thought I was bumping them up a
A
grade.
grade to everybody.
Right.
But then
You got,
it would have been, I couldn't do it because of the levy rates.
right. You're just making it fair for somebody doing the same job in your office and Jerry, that you're the same, not the same job, but kind of.
Close.
Yeah. You're just making it fair to the
Right.
person that's underneath.
Okay, anything further?
No, I think that's it.
Lori?
No.
Jerry, more thoughts?
I think part of the problem might have been miscommunication, but it's kind of my understanding is our meeting before we started our budgets to see where we at, that there wasn't going to be any money because we were under the assumption we were woefully $1.5 million. So some of us didn't put in for that grade or grade increase because we knew the money wasn't there. So that's part of the problem. And then, and another part of the problem is they tried to correct is that this only goes to 24 plus years. After this year, I don't have to worry about it, but I've got 2 gals in my office, 35 years in the county. We should have rewarded them years ago for that. And under the old system, it's just not there. So, and I think that's, again, going back to the study, that's one thing they'll address. I mean, it's commendable. When you hit 30 or 35 years, you should get the golden watch and a thank you, a pat on the back at least. And we don't do that. So, again, it was maybe a miscommunication, but I felt like we were just lucky to keep our heads above water, and if we put in basically the same budget we had the previous year, we would be in better shape. So, and I think this, with the time allowed, was our best case scenario. Is it perfect? I don't know. But neither is that old step and grade and the inequities between departments and stuff. So I think that corrects some of it, but I don't know if it corrected everything. So maybe that has to be addressed individually.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Yep. Thanks.
Colleen?
Will we have more comment at the very end?
No, this is our comment period.
Okay then. So, just for your point on this one, I got several. But this one, is it everybody getting a pay raise or just the people that had similar jobs and then they're getting raised up to similar jobs? Or is it everybody that was on the matrix got a pay raise, and what percentage of people that weren't matching grade, how much did they get a raise?
I'm going to have to defer to you on that. I don't.
So, during the budget, we decided that the other departments, 19 and 23, had gotten raises, larger raises over the years, and last year, whatever. So those ones would not be, and those are the ones we're trying to match, get closer to, for the ones that got left behind.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, I was just seeing if other jobs, is everybody getting a raise? Or some people
No.
getting a raise and other people not getting a raise?
We left out the departments that got raises in the last
I mean,
2
just
years.
not the sheriff's office, not all the other ones that got big raises. I'm talking about everybody else that's on that matrix. Is everybody getting a raise? Is some people getting more of a raise than other people? And for what reason?
To put them all into the same step and grade and match closer to raises that have been done and jobs that are similar clerk-wise.
I'm saying not a clerk, not any job that's different or matching those up. I'm just saying a specific job. Is that job getting a pay raise, and what percentage is it getting?
Yeah,
Like not a clerk, a motor T guy, or not a motor T guy, but a specific position. Is he just getting a raise?
No. No, I
Okay,
don't
so
think
certain
that's
people are not getting a raise. Certain people are getting a raise.
right.
They all meet we raised everyone's classes up with giving them a bump in wages.
Everybody would get a 1% at least.
Well,
Yeah.
So my
Right,
other
and-
ones was,
yeah.
so the matrix is being presented, the sheriff's office is saying that their matrix is throwing their budget out of whack and is causing all that issue. So I have a problem with that, the budget deficit that the sheriff's office is caused by the matrix. When I've been figuring out that it's not a budget deficit, but the sheriff's office had a budget of $5 million. They spent under $5 million. So they went under budget the last 2 years. They never went over their budget. What the problem was is the revenue that the county commissioners and the clerk projected to cover that was not presented to them. That's what created the deficit. So I've been trying to figure out, where is that deficit coming from? They have things that they produce revenue on, their contracts, their inmates, everything that they control has been brought in more money. They say, I'm gonna make $100,000 on inmates. They make $400,000 on inmates. So they're bringing in extra money. So everything they're doing is correct. They're staying under their budget. They're increasing their revenue. But the deficit is all the extra money that is projected to do them, because you say it's going to be $5 million to cover their budget. You have to have $5 million of revenue. That $5 million of revenue was not presented to them. They didn't get the full amount.
No,
So that's what created the deficit.
No, the problem is when this whole justice fund was set up, it was set up incorrectly. They didn't give us any direction on what fees went in there. They should have put in there, the justice fund will be funded by this, and this. They just funded the justice fund. So that's the problem, is we've had to go back. They were funded by things that they shouldn't have been funded in. Then we gave them extra money this year. We gave them $650,000 that we didn't have to give them. And so we did some trading. So, you know, and the whole problem with the sheriff's department is, at the time when they gave the wage increases, they didn't have the funds. I mean, the audit that we did on that Ides and Bailey did says the same thing. You can go through and look at the audit. It's just, you know, we can't just make everybody over here take the money away from everybody here to fund the sheriff's department. That's the problem. We're working with the sheriff's department to try to figure that out. So
happy to respond to that. So you, as the county commissioners and the clerk, say, Sheriff, you have $5 million it's going to take you to run it. You say that's your budget. Don't overspend that. They didn't overspend that money, okay? But you at the county commissioner level, you are required at the beginning of the year to take the expenditures and match the revenue. So you had the revenue. You projected the revenue. It didn't come in, or something went wrong with the revenue that was supposed to come in. And you didn't
last year we had an error last year, and we had an error with.
So that's an error with the county commissioners and the clerk, not with the justice fund, not with the sheriff.
No, the error with the justice fund was set up.
The county commissioners are the ones that set the budget.
Gentlemen, let me.
This is another conversation.
This is, it's really turned into a good conversation for a Wednesday meeting, but right now, specific to our decisions we got.
I got one last point on that. Never mind, I'll wait for another meeting.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Appreciate it. Josh, you gotta have some questions. So many questions.
So what department specifically is this potential change affecting?
Current expense, district court, appraiser,
Probation services.
probation.
Okay.
Anyone that's pretty well housed on the side.
How long are we on the wage study?
We're trying to get people to, we're trying to find companies right now to figure out how, who's going to do it.
You guys opened up the bidding process.
Yeah,
for
we'll
that,
be
right?
doing it. Yep.
Okay. If this, you guys had said before that this is, the current system is hard because of limitations on your guys' staff, pay clerk, right? Using all these different matrices, word I went through that earlier. Why is that hard? Explain to me why that's hard.
One of the reasons why our auditors also kind of indicated that we should be on, since we're a small county, we should be on one wage or one pay grade scale. And then, I talked this morning about that. Our payroll clerk does all of our insurance. She does our health, life, Percy, FICA, FUTA, SUTA, pays out twice a month. She manages over 150 employees. She does sick leave, Department of Labor, workman's comp. She does all of our IRS asset, or our ICRIMP assets, all the vehicles, all the insurance that we have, and time cards. So really for one person, the Kootenai County, they have 6 different pay scales. Well, they probably have like 6 pay clerks. So, I mean, really, we need to manage what we have. We could probably get away with maybe 2 different pay step and grades, but, to have 4 or 5 of them, and then it also makes it unfair, because if we have 4 or 5 different pay grades and we're all doing the same work, it kind of defeats the purpose. Now, the sheriff's office is different. They have a different pay scale.
So unifying these makes it easier to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure that people get their longevity and get moved to the right
Make sure
Things
it's fair.
got missed.
Yeah, that was, what were the challenges there? Because you still have to do 150 people and
Sure.
all those things.
But yeah, making sure that they're in the right spot
Okay.
on where they're supposed to be, and if it's just one, you're up and down, sideways, whatever, then it's a lot easier than.
And if you had like a
Follow
7%
6
COLA
different-
or something like that, you'd have
It's
to
one-
take that COLA to every one of these.
Right.
Yeah,
And
okay.
and the old one, they just put on
Plugged
a
it
COLA,
in. So-
plugged it in, and
Uniformity in numbers
right.
helps here. Okay, so if this is just a temporary measure though, you guys are gonna have to do this again as soon as that wage study comes in, you guys make changes there.
Absolutely.
So that is
Yeah.
not gonna add another layer, like is it truthfully easier to do this now, make the changes, allow for department heads to come in and potentially alter things where things either don't match up or need to rematch up, like you had said, if they're classified as a 6, but they want to keep them at a 4 type thing. Is it truly going to be easier to adopt this and then have to redo it as soon as that wage study's done? Is that going to be easier for you guys, or is that
Well, I think it's more consistent to do it this way,
okay?
just because of the employees on this side have gone without compared to the other payroll metrics. So, to me, the work doesn't matter as long as it's for the employees.
Okay, and then final question. So we have X amount of department heads, right? So we have Ben, Jerry, I'm forgetting the treasurer,
Carrie,
Carrie.
that's elected officials
Yeah, and then
versus department heads.
so elected, and then you have your department heads, right?
Right.
What are do we have like a report on what their thoughts are on this? Like if all of them hate this idea, does it make sense to make a move without that or without their approval? Or do we, I'm trying not to mince words, but do we not care? If they're going, this is going to make things really hard on us, or this doesn't make sense for us, or this is going to negatively affect us.
And I guess
How
they
would
should
it
have been
make
here
it?
today.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because if consensusly they don't agree with it and they would rather just wait till the wage study, are you is it going to make more of a negative impact or a positive impact? Because it sounds like if everyone's getting a wage increase, most people should be okay with that, but some people now might be put in a spot where maybe that wage increase happens now, but then they don't see another one until at least until the new wage study comes out, and then you guys
Right.
go through and probably recreate an entirely new pay matrix that's county-wide, or at least this side of the street county-wide.
Well, what I understand, the wage study, it's going to be county-wide
Sure.
because that makes more sense.
Right.
So, again, this way it at least bridges that gap a little bit for the employees, because the gap has been too far for too many years. So this bridges the gap for the employees on this side versus what has happened.
And what has happened? Maybe I'm out of the loop here.
Well, it just looks like there's been a lot of different systems presented to the previous board that was passed and not really took all of the repercussions and the things dribbled down past. It didn't take the full picture of it. So it created a lot of deficits between the departments.
So that, I think that probably is tying into some of my confusion and maybe some other people's confusion, because those matrices were presented to that board by the elected and or department heads, correct? So that's what they believed was fair for the people working under them, right?
Right.
So,
But it didn't take an account on the whole picture, because on a county, you have to do it.
legally you have to do it uniformly.
Well,
Equality should
equality.
I mean, I agree. I'm just, if there's a legal ramification there, you know, and because they're the two in the room. So if Jerry believes that, you know, his two people working at his front desk, this is the matrix that he presented, and Ben goes, you know, I've got these two people who work at my front desk, and they think that's, like, if those numbers don't match up, even though that's what they believed and that's what the board approved, like, that's either, that's the illegal or that's not allowed. Like, what's the, like, is there a logistical issue there? Are we saving money? Are we losing money? Like, I guess I just don't understand the need for it. If these were what the department heads and elected argued for.
That's kind of the question we had in the first place too, is why did they change and get different matrices in the first place?
Yeah.
Nobody seems to be able to answer that.
Pinpoint it down why it happened
Why
in the
did they
first
do it
place.
in the first place? Were they trying to save money? So they said, here, figure out how to save money? Or, I don't know.
I can
I don't know
speak
why
to the
it's
sheriff's office one.
changed.
I spoke to the sheriff's office, or Mike Gunderson, when he created it.
Well, and I was pretty, I had pretty good insight into when Gunderson created his, just because the way the sheriff's office was framed up was a challenge, and we were losing deputies, we were training them, and then basically losing them to other places because we couldn't offer a competitive wage. And even still, like, that makes sense to me. Like, the logic behind that makes sense. But in these other departments, I guess I would just, like, maybe wondering, like, do they remember why they were asked to create a new pay matrix? Did they want to create a new pay matrix? Like,
I can't speak.
yeah.
But I can, hell no, I didn't want to. I mean, that, because my opinion and my feelings would create inequities. I mean, if you had a conservative elected official and one that wasn't, it blows that equity out of the water. I mean, if I thought the commissioners would accept whatever I gave to them, I could be pretty generous. But that's not the case. I've been here long enough to know that we have X amount of dollars.
Right.
It's not going to increase substantially at all. And we're all in this boat together. But if you had somebody, and like Sheriff Gunderson was trying to stop the bleed,
Right.
you know, so he increased those substantially, right, wrong, or indifferent. What it would take is an unbiased person to look at that. Like I said earlier, and
So you were tasked with creating one, and you didn't
yes,
necessarily want
in
to.
a very short window of time,
Right.
too, because I think the commissioners at that time, you'd have to ask them, had accepted that matrix.
Right.
Because it was warranted.
Yes.
Very much so. But then they seen the inequities and said, hey, can you come up with something? So, and in a very short amount of time, you know, I put together something based on education and those type of things.
Right.
But in 2 weeks' time, amongst your other duties, was not enough time to take a look at that.
Okay.
I mean, it would, as we found out with the work that the old people did on the wage study, it's an undertaking.
Sure.
I mean, you should research what other cities are paying, you know, what other departments, what your neighboring counties are paying, what benefits we get versus theirs and stuff. It's a task that should have never been handed to just one elected official. And that's what I've been saying for at least 10 years is let the experts, someone that's unbiased, take a look at that. And then all of us need to agree that that's what we're going to live on, that decision. Whether it's good or bad, we have to say, okay, somebody with more knowledge than me put this together.
So you would be in favor of, like, what's been proposed today?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it comes in line to pretty close to what I was looking at. There's some errors in there that I did answer to just out of lack of knowledge. So, I mean, if you want to know what your house is worth, come and ask me. Don't ask Peggy, she has no idea.
Right.
I shouldn't be doing my own matrix wage stuff.
Gotcha.
That's
Okay. Yeah, I think just getting maybe some of the, like, that basic input there is, at least for like how I would report on this, because otherwise I think I'm just as confused as everyone else is trying to make sense of this. So, Ben, like on the flip side, do you similar thoughts, different thoughts?
I would echo a lot of what Jerry is saying, and then I think that the county moving forward with a wage study and with developing new pay matrices, however many it's going to be, that accurately accounts for what our public servants in this county should be getting paid, or at least moving us in that direction. Even if we don't accomplish it over the course of a year or 3 years or 5 years, but recognizing this is our projected target, this is what we should be shooting for in order to ensure fair wages and equality. I support all of those sentiments, and I don't want to see a single paycheck go out in the new budget cycle that doesn't reflect what our employees expected to be paid. My confusion started primarily with the discussions that were had at the last budget meeting, where it appeared from the motion and from the insinuation pretty clearly that the increase would not be based on a new pay matrix, that the BOCC was putting off adoption of a new matrix until after the wage study was done, which I understand that there were procedural issues with getting it done when we thought it was going to be done. But the BOCC's motion at that point was that they weren't adopting one, and that it was going to be a step increase for the employees. And so my issue was mostly confusion at the outset, and that it appeared that the new proposed wages, which were sent out to various electeds, and we were asked to sign off on them for change of status forms, was based on a new pay matrix, when it appeared very clearly that the BOCC had not voted for that. So that was my first issue, was a point of confusion on that. My second point of inquiry is, if we are taking employees out of a pay matrix that they're currently using, plugging them into a new pay matrix, who gets to say which employees are alike and who gets to say which are not alike? And that to me is a very large issue that's going to be impacted largely by a wage study and should be deliberated on. It should be determined by the BOCC after consideration of all the pertinent factors. So what the BOCC does as far as today, as far as how can we ensure the payroll clerk has clear direction so that the next set of checks that get cut to the county employees can accurately reflect an increase that we've budgeted for as a county, that ultimately the BOCC gets to try to sort through that and figure out what they're going to do in the interim. But long term, my hope was to get those points of confusion cleared up, especially since the directive at the last budget hearing seemed clear, but it appears that we don't actually have the budget passed to support what the motion was. So.
And then last question. October 24th was when you guys have to cut the next series of checks, is what you guys said, right?
That's the end of the pay period.
Pay period.
Right.
Is there like a legality that you guys have to have this figured out by that day? Or is it you're just trying to?
We're just trying to.
Right, I mean, they can stay at what
You guys pay
at, right?
pay every 2 weeks or once a month?
Once a month.
So, like-
Some get to draw every 2 weeks.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So would it be more prudent to wait 1 month to do the things similar to like what Ben just brought up about making sure, like going in and seeing whose jobs are like?
Again, that comes back down to none of us are qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's still in their step and grade that they originally
were from the old system. So
the elected official has already put them where they want to be, where they feel they need to be.
Right, and I mean, they can look at this and say, move grades, whatever. Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, waiting a month, I don't.
Yeah,
Not that we're gonna answer that, but
if there's no
as
rush
far
on
as-
it, maybe some of the questions, and because even like listening to Commissioner Dose talk, there's like some sound, and even a little bit of Commissioner Zimmerman, like some things could be like better knowledge or like a more comfortable knowledge even. I don't know. That could just be my perception listening. But it seems like a more comfortable knowledge could be ascertained in the next 30 days as opposed to in 2 meetings in 1 day trying to figure it out 2 days or 3 days before you try to pull this off.
Okay, anything further?
No.
Okay, I've gone around the room, Mr. Prosecutor. Would you like any further comment?
It's in your hands, Mr. Chair.
Great. Let me ask the clerk, have all the elected and department heads that are affected by these changes given you input, or
We took them to it, yes.
so they've all seen them and they've given input? I mean, I saw
The
the
elected,
prosecutors,
yes,
the
yeah.
elected.
Yeah.
I guess, are there really any department heads affected by these changes?
Well, you're planning and zoning. You have a few underneath your commissioners, but,
Okay, and this is not affecting elected salaries, correct?
No.
This is just affecting the employees.
just the employees.
Trying to figure out how we move forward. It sounds like you're okay with adopting this temporarily?
Temporarily. What got me on this was I didn't understand it before. We didn't do a step increase. We increased, or a grade increase. We just increased the grade.
Right. To bring it closer to.
Now the increase in the grade is across the board the same, right?
No.
So if you did an increase,
Right, so the percentages are like at the bottom. So this was a 1% increase from the starting intermediate wage on there. And then it increased, 5% approximately, and then 2.4, because this step and grade also is kind of at that percentage of going up and across.
Okay, so going down, it's increased by 2.48
Increase between years.
between years. Okay, going across is an increase by that,
And then 5.3 between grades.
and 5.3 between grades.
In my mind, it's still a new step in grade. Maybe there's room to wiggle and say that we could temporarily accept it while we do the wage study. But in my mind, it's not what I thought we agreed to in the budget. So if we do something, it would mean going in a slightly different direction. It may be what you were expecting, though. I don't know. I was, again, already thinking that we were stepping them down on the current chart, stepping them up, but
I
down.
don't remember that meeting.
Well, the thing is, we kind of had conflicting interests at budget time, because we had kind of, if you thought it was going up a grade, you're telling me, on the other hand, keep the levy rate down.
I get that.
So, I mean, there was a little bit of a
I get that.
conflict there as far as what directions you take.
So that aside, because I understand your logic there.
But as far as the system itself, I'm not understanding where you guys are thinking that it's not the classifications were the same as it always has been. And do I think the employees deserve a raise this pay period? Absolutely.
Yes, I agree.
And has it changed? Not really. I mean, we brought the inflation part of it up to where, which doesn't, we're still not close. the road department, the sheriff's office, and solid waste. And they're still not quite there yet. But we got as close as we, without adopting a new system, so to speak, we got as close as we could. So, I mean, I think the employees deserve it. And waiting another month they've waited how many years?
Well, I not only think they deserve it, I was thinking they deserved a little more than what we're doing.
Well,
But I understand that we don't have it. So, but in my mind, we were looking at a more substantial increase. I understand your reasoning. I'm still struggling with the logic of why we didn't just take everybody and move them up 1% or 2% versus moving them around so that some people are getting 1% and some are getting 2% and some are getting 3%.
I just go on the record and say I am for everybody getting raises. I don't want that to wait a month. I just want people to know.
Really, we are.
Yeah, give them as much raise.
They are the same.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
I mean,
everyone
I would have to go back and look at everybody's matrix
Yes.
and individually check. I mean, it really wouldn't take me too long to see what it all consisted of
Okay.
completely. But some are going to be different just because, you know, as Peggy stated, some people were just left behind. They just didn't get moved. And part of that is because of the different systems everywhere. So some of them are going to be bigger just because they got left behind. You know, somebody who's been here 25 years and somebody else has been here 25 years, there could be as much as a $5 gap or something there, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And that's just example, you know.
The
It's not-
longevity, I remember.
Right, so there's
Well-
just different stuff like that. So some of them are going to be bigger just because of that kind of a gap too.
And that would be the only reason.
that is
Yeah.
the only reason.
That is the only reason why they get more is because
They
of
got,
longevity.
well,
Sure.
and some of the classifications, like you had, and I'm not going to say what employee, you had an employee under the commissioners that got left so far behind, and he has over 30 years. We brought him up to where on the scale where he should be. We did that. But that's what happened is some of the previous elected officials really didn't understand this step and grade system. So they're
Not even their own.
not even their own. So they're not even watching. Yeah, they're not even
They
watching
weren't
their
even moving
employees
in their own step and grade.
within that own step and grade. We had a problem last week regarding a couple employees that are coming on board. Well, there was the old system sent to me, use this because they have 5 years experience. Well, no, you can't do that because they're in, 5 years of
Longevity.
longevity. Well,
Right.
no, that's not the way the system works. You start them out at this wage when they come on to the county. Then from there, you're looking at, there's, some comp things going into that employee. But then when we find out what they're doing, then we can give them that workman's comp classification. That's what we're trying to do, to keep them in the same system so that everyone comes in that way, so you're not trying to outguess yourself, or that everyone knows the system. And I just think when I left, that this system kind of everyone wanted to get their own system. Well,
It just took a lot of branches, that's for sure.
it took a lot of branches.
Right.
But yet the dates of years of service, people weren't taking because of the inflation. You got to take that into consideration too, because the wages got inflated way past what the old step and grade is. I get that, and that should have been addressed years ago. That should have kept up with the inflation. But again, a county's still under a 3% cap. This has hit every business. This hasn't hit just a county. This has hit every business.
That's right.
With the last few years that you had wages going higher out there for qualified people where a county cannot do it. That's the problem. We're still in that 3% cap. And that inflation out there for employees, they can go elsewhere. I get that. But you're still in this cap and you're in this square box, and we're going to have to try to be as fair and tell you guys, even if you get a wage study, it doesn't mean we're going to have the money to bring them up to that.
Yeah.
That's what scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone keeps saying this wage study.
Yeah.
But what scares me is, can the
How do we
county
fund
really
it?
afford it?
Exactly.
Yeah, how do you fund it?
Mhm.
Because you're in a 3% cap, period. Now, I don't know if someone needs to get that legislation changed to give me a 4 or 5% would be nice, but again, you're in that box and it's hard to come out of. Especially when you have insurance could keep going up.
Yep.
You got things that's
insurance
pertaining
went up.
to the employees
Insurance
also
went
that
up
we're picking up.
$115,000 this year.
Mm-hmm.
So the county paid that and didn't pass it off on the employees. So, that's really, that's a benefit, but we're trying.
Exactly. But as far as the qualifications, I don't see where we changed it.
Okay. What Commissioner Dose, did you want to take a little time and have Timmy run those figures, or are you comfortable? She kind of explained to me that nobody got it was mostly longevity that was the higher raises, which should have been done previously.
Right. There was some longevities for sure that were well off.
Would it be accurate to say that everybody got a 1% except for the people who were behind on longevity?
That is probably accurate. I mean, like I said, I could go and put them together and see exactly where everybody's at as far as what their bumps were. Would take me some time, but
What do you want to do? Because I see
both sides. I think, if you would go do that and just look at that and then have that information, would it make you feel more comfortable, Mr. Dose, to know that, that I understand the longevity, because longevity is what, what was missed. I know that on.
There was a lot of it missed.
Yes.
mm-hmm.
And everybody else got it, and some people didn't get it. So
Mhm.
that's something that we were obligated to do.
Yeah, I'm okay with the longevity. I'm wrestling, and I think Josh put it well, with originally we had said let's not do a new system till we get a study. In a way, we are kind of doing a new system until we get a study. I understand the logic of why. I understand that we couldn't fund what we were originally talking about. If we're going to see this as temporary and that it's going to be replaced by something that's recommended by an outside company, maybe I could see my way to moving forward with this.
Okay. I would agree with the same thing.
My
For interim.
My other concern is, and this is the one that's going to take more time, is that have all the elected gone through these and made sure that Verify got a second set of eyes. Peggy always talks about 4 eyes. Mm-hmm. Have you looked at where all your people fall on this new one, and are there any changes other than longevity or this 1% increase?
From my department's perspective, with Timmy's explanation, it looks like she's taken them from the one category and put them in what's considered to be the equivalent category under the new matrix. And so as to that part of the question, I think I can affirm that and say, yeah, Timmy's explanation in regards to my office is what was reflected on the new proposal. I think some of those outstanding concerns maybe that the commission has raised might be answered with just a report that shows what the percentage of change was for each employee. Maybe that gives you a better conscience to say, yeah, it seems like, the goal here is being accomplished with this temporary matrix in the interim. And so that might be helpful for you guys to be able to see and articulate out. Yeah, we've accounted for all the employees. This is the percentage. There doesn't appear to be any department that was, grossly affected one way or the other, etc. And with that, I apologize, but I have to be back in the courtroom for the court hearing. So, if you gentlemen will excuse me.
Okay,
I think I'll come with you. It sounds easier. I'm kidding. It doesn't sound easier. Okay. Thank you. I think I'm ready to accept the idea that this could be our temporary new step and grade for the purposes of getting us by and meeting some of our budgetary goals until we get that study.
I would agree. I'll move to approve this as an interim step and grade match until we get a wage study, and then we will perform a new step and grade system.
Does that motion satisfy what you need to move forward if we approve that?
Well, to me, it's the old system.
I understand. Linguistically, I understand. But I liked how he worded it.
Yeah.
Will it accomplish what we need for payroll?
I think so, because I just feel that we need to move forward with our employees. That's my big concern.
Okay, then I'll second that. Any discussion?
No.
I think we've had our discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we'll approve this as our temporary new step and grade. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Are you going back up?